Rwanda has one of the lowest tax burdens in Africa, with a tax revenue to GDP ratio of 13%, which is lower than the African average of 21%. Despite this, the country faces a significant taxation challenge as it strives to balance its growing revenue needs with the need to keep the tax burden low to maintain its position as an attractive destination for investment. This challenge is even more pressing, considering that the government's development agenda requires substantial funding. So how is Rwanda addressing this challenge? And what lessons can other African countries learn from its experience? This is a question we will try to answer in today's episode. Rwanda is a small, landlocked country in East Africa with a population of over 14 million people. In recent years, the country has experienced significant economic growth, averaging around 8% annually, driven by investments in infrastructure, technology, and the services sector. However, despite this growth, Rwanda's government faces a significant challenge in terms of tax revenue. The country's tax revenue to GDP ratio is only around 13%, which is much lower than the African average of 21%. This low level of tax revenue is a result of several factors, including a large informal economy, weak tax administration, and a relatively small tax base. As a result, the government has had to rely on foreign aid and borrowing to finance its development programs. While the government has made efforts to improve tax revenue, such as implementing a new electronic invoicing system and strengthening tax audits, these measures have not been enough to meet the country's revenue targets. This is because the government is caught in a difficult balancing act. On the one hand, it needs to raise more revenue to finance its development agenda. On the other hand, it needs to keep the tax burden low to maintain its attractiveness for investors. Rwanda has implemented a number of policies to attract foreign investment, such as a tax holiday for new businesses and a commitment to ease the cost of doing business. These policies have been successful in attracting investment, but they have also resulted in a loss of tax revenue. For example, the tax holiday program has been criticized for being too generous, with some companies taking advantage of it to avoid paying taxes altogether. To address this challenge, Rwanda has been exploring various options, including broadening the tax base, increasing tax rates, and improving tax administration. Broadening the tax base would mean bringing more people and businesses into the formal economy and making them liable for taxes. Increasing tax rates, on the other hand, would mean imposing higher taxes on individuals and businesses, which could potentially discourage investment and economic activity. Improving tax administration, on the other hand, would mean strengthening measures to prevent tax evasion and improve compliance. This could involve measures such as increasing the frequency of tax audits or using data analytics to identify taxpayers who are not complying with the law. The challenge for Rwanda is to find the right balance between these different approaches. While it is important to raise revenue to finance development programs, it is equally important to maintain the country's attractiveness for investors. Rwanda is a small economy, and it cannot afford to lose investment because of high taxes. At the same time, it cannot continue to rely on foreign aid and borrowing to finance its development programs. It needs to build a strong domestic revenue base to support its growth. So how can Rwanda achieve this balance? One way is through a combination of carrot and stick approach. On the one hand, the government can offer incentives to encourage people and businesses to comply with tax laws. This can include measures such as simplifying the tax system, reducing bureaucratic hurdles, and providing tax breaks for businesses that invest in certain sectors. On the other hand, the government can use a stick approach to punish those who evade taxes or do not comply with the law. This can include measures such as increasing penalties for tax evasion and strengthening tax audits. Another option for Rwanda is to focus on improving tax administration rather than increasing tax rates or broadening the tax base. This involves investing in technology to improve tax compliance, strengthening the capacity of tax officials, and promoting a culture of tax compliance. By focusing on tax administration, Rwanda can ensure that its existing tax base contributes more revenue without discouraging investment or economic activity. Ultimately, the best approach for Rwanda will be a combination of all three strategies. The government needs to strike a careful balance between raising revenue, maintaining its attractiveness for investors, and improving tax administration. This will require a well-thought-out strategy and effective implementation. But the stakes are high. If Rwanda can get its tax policy right, it can unlock significant resources to finance its development agenda and improve the lives of its citizens. Rwanda's experience has some important lessons for other African countries. Many African countries face similar challenges in terms of low tax revenue and weak tax administration. Rwanda's success in attracting investment despite its low tax burden is particularly noteworthy, and other countries can learn from its approach. By adopting a balanced approach that combines incentives and penalties, investing in tax administration and maintaining a business-friendly environment, African countries can improve their tax revenue and finance their development goals, while at the same time remaining attractive for investors.